What's going on, guys? Today we are hopping right into Network Services 2. This is a continuation of our Cyber Defense Lab. I believe this is the third box in the actual lab, and we're going to keep this path until we beat it, just like we did on the junior pen testing. I want to give a quick shout out to the Patreon members, guys. I really appreciate the support, and today's going up one of our first chapters in some of our guides that we're doing, or cert-based learning, whatever you want to call it, where you can actually take some courses and stuff. So that's going to be exciting. I'm pretty excited about that. So without further ado, guys, I appreciate it. If you guys like this content, please hit the subscribe button, like button, and comment below. It helps out way more than you guys think, and I know we say that every time, but I'm telling you, it's the only way to grow. If people just watch the video and don't like it or subscribe, it doesn't help anything. YouTube's algorithm is kind of weird like that. So let's go ahead and hop into it. I like this box a lot more than the first one because it actually is starting to dive a little bit more into, I would say, things that you can enumerate nowadays a little bit more, but everything's still out there. So even if you think a technology is too old, someone out there has it. So keep that in mind. All right, so first thing we're going to do is network file system. So NFS stands for Network File System, allows a system to share directories and files with others over a network. So kind of like the file sharing that we did in the previous one. It's a little bit similar, but it's not a file protocol. It's network file system. So it's not the network, or excuse me, it's not file sharing like we did in the last one where it's file transfer protocol. This is an actual file sharing protocol. So make sure you don't get them confused like I just did in my mouth. All right, first the client will request to mount a directory from a remote host. So this is something you guys probably see decent amount. You're going to mount it to your computer. This means it will then run as if it's sitting on your computer. So it's kind of like I could go to my mounted share. If I hit LS here, let's just say this rooms directory was a mounted share. You wouldn't even notice. It would look like that, and I could change directories and go right into it. That's what we're looking for here with this, and that's what we're going to take advantage of. So what runs, I'm not going to read all this, guys, because you guys can read that on your own. Now, what runs NFS? And you can see it's Linux, Mac, or Unix, and then Windows. So pretty much every computer. That's perfect. That's good to know, because it's important to know what systems can run on what, because, for instance, and this is kind of what Nmap and stuff does for you sometimes when you're doing service detection, but let's say you see NFS is running on a Windows box, and it can, or I mean on a machine, and it can only run on Windows. Let's just say it obviously can't. It can run on everything, but let's say it could only run on Windows. Well, now you know that has to be a Windows box, right? That's kind of the importance here, is knowing what it can run on, because then you know that, hey, this could be a Linux, Windows, or whatever. So you have to keep that stuff in mind, because the operating system makes a huge difference on how you're going to approach things too. Okay, so let's answer some questions. What does NFS stand for? Network File System. We just covered that. What process allows NFS client to interact with a remote directory as though it's sitting on their device? That's mounting. What does NFS use to represent files and directories on the server? And that's a file handle, nickname, whatever you want to call it. It's just the name for it. What protocol does NFS use to communicate between the server and client? And that's RPC, and that says it right here. There we go. It says it there, and then I thought it said it somewhere else, but whatever. It says right here. The mount service will then connect to the relevant mount daemon using RPC. So that's the protocol it's actually going to use to connect. All right, what two pieces of user data does the NFS server take as a parameter for controlling user permissions? So it takes two different things to check permissions: user ID and group ID. So number one, it checks your ID, your user, to make sure that you actually can access that. And then your group, what group are you in, to make sure that you can have permissions to do whatever it is you need to do on there. Okay, can a Windows NFS server share files with Linux? Yes, it can. Can a Linux share with Mac? Yes, it can. What is the latest version of NFS, released in 2016 but still up to date as of 2020? This is pretty easy. You just Google it and it'll pop out. 4.2. All right. I think you can actually go to the site they gave you up top too and do it. So let's go ahead and start this machine while we're talking about it. So we're going to enumerate NFS. So this is enumeration. I actually am glad they put the actual, I guess, definition here. It's made by InfoSec Institute, so that's good enough for me. So a process which establishes an active connection to the target host to discover potential attack vectors in the system, and the same can be used for further exploitation of the system. Okay, what does that mean? here's the big difference between enumeration and something like OSINT or just information gathering, reconnaissance, whatever you want to call it. Enumeration physically touches the system. That's important. So like it says here, a process which establishes an active connection. That is the definition. So if you are establishing an active connection, if you are reaching out and asking for information, if you are touching that system, you are in the enumeration phase, which is where you got to be careful because in some places that's illegal. So keep in mind, if requesting certain information from a machine can be illegal. So make sure you know your laws. We don't do anything illegal on this channel, and we never will. Just keep that stuff in mind. Okay, requirements. In order to do a more advanced enumeration of the NFS server shares, we're going to need a few tools. What tools do we need? And it's NFS Common is the name. Yep. So luckily, the attack box has all these tools for us. And it says here it's important to have this package installed on any machine that uses NFS. That's true. Basically, it's just an easy distribution of NFS that allows you to interact with it and gives you these, they're programs, but they're all included in the suite of tools. So primarily we're concerned with show mount, which we're going to use, and mount.nfs. Okay, so you can install NFS Common using sudo apt install NFS Common. Pretty easy way to install. It's the same way, but you can see it comes default on Kali remote boxes and the attack box. All right, so port scanning. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to scan with Nmap. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I'm not going to do these scans on these videos, and the reason I'm not going to do these scans is because you notice they're putting them on uncommon ports, so you have to scan every port. That's fine, but it's going to take a long time, so I'm not going to sit here and make you guys watch a video that's that long, and I've already done these port scans in the past, so I'm not going to do it and then go back and say, okay, let me run it again, wait for it, and then edit the video that way. We're not doing that. You guys can run the port scan if you want, but I'm going to tell you what ports it's on anyway. Okay, and if the point of this box was to run Nmap scans, then I would do that, but that's not the point of it. You can do boxes that are specific for Nmap scans. Okay, mounting NFS shares. All right, your client system needs a directory where all the content shared by the host server in the export folder can be accessed. You can create this folder anywhere on your system. Once you've created this mount point, you can use the mount command to connect to the NFS. Okay, perfect. So what they're saying here, pretty easy. Once you've created this mount point, you can use the mount command to connect to the NFS share point, blah, 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 blah. They're giving you the command to actually connect to an NFS share. Okay, we're going to need that here in a little bit, but we're going to break it down. So sudo obviously run as root. Mount, that's going to mount the drive to whatever you're telling it to. And then TAC-T NFS is the type of device to mount. So that you need that to specify that it's an NFS share that you're mounting, because you can mount physical devices too. Then IP, that's obviously share the IP address of the NFS server and the name. So that's putting in your location. And then where do you want it mounted? We're going to mount it in the temporary directory so it goes away. And then no lock specifies not to use an NLM locking. Okay. So let's answer some questions. Conduct a thorough port scan of your choosing. How many ports are open? So once you get done with the scan, you're going to see there's 7 ports open. Okay, cool. Which port contains the service we're looking to enumerate? And it will tell you that if you do a service version scan. 2049 is the port we're looking at. Now, use user sbin show mount tac e IP to list the shares. What is the name of the visible share? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So the show mount is just the reason we're doing the user sbin show mount is just because that's where it's at. You see, that's where it's at. So we're running it from there, and we're going to give it the E, and then 10.225.243, and we're going to hit enter. And you can see the only one we have is /home. Okay, so you can see that's the answer. So the name of the visible share, meaning that's visible. We can connect to that. So time to mount to the share, or mount the share. Perfect. So first thing we got to do is make a directory. And you don't have to do this. You can mount it to one that's previously there if you wanted, but I'm going to mount it to temporary mount. Okay? And then first use make directory, we did that. Then use the command we broke down earlier. So that's this command right here. So you need sudo mount tac-t NFS, and then the IP, which is 10.10.225.243. Boom. And then the share, which is home. Home. And then we're going to put it in the temp mount. Okay, so now if we go into cd temp mount and we hit ls, we got a directory there because we just mounted it. So now keep in mind, this is a directory from somewhere else. This is a directory that sits at this address that we just mounted to, and now it looks like it's sitting in our box. So that's actually a really cool tool. It's something that we use all the time without realizing it nowadays. Okay, so there's the name of the mount, Cappuccino. Have a look inside the directory and look at the files. Okay, let's take a gander. Okay, there's nothing there, so let's do an all. Okay, so there we go. We got an SSH. So it looks like this is a home directory because it's storing SSH keys. Okay, which of these folders should contain the keys that would give us remote access to the server? The .ssh. So let's go ahead and get in there. Get in there. All right. Now we have authorized keys, ID, RSA. So first thing I'm going to do, if you guys remember the last one, we're going to cat the ID RSA.pub. And that's because I want to make sure that his name is, and that's correct, it's Cappuccino is his actual name. So now what we're going to do is, you can see, we can go ahead and copy the ID RSA. And we're just going to copy it to, let's see, we'll just copy it to our desktop. So we'll say, whoops, desktop. All right, so now it's copied in our desktop. And we got to change the permissions on it, which isn't a big deal. We'll go ahead. I want to stay in that directory, so we'll go ahead and say desktop. There it is. There's our ID.rs or ID_RSA. So we're just going to change mod 600 ID RSA. This just allows us to actually access it the way we need. All right. Now it's asking us, can we log into the machine using it? So let's try it. SSH. And it's I don't know how to spell cappuccino, apparently. Okay, I did. Cappuccino. That just looks weird, doesn't it? That don't look right, but whatever. Cappuccino at 10.10.245.243. That doesn't sound right, does it? 225.243, okay. 225.243. Let's hit enter. I messed this up already, but that's all right. We need to put the identity file in there, which apparently I didn't even think about. Okay, so tech I, and then the identity file is that ID.RSA. Perfect. And then hit enter. All right, we're in. So we're in as Cappuccino right now. So yes, we can log into the machine using that. That's great. But do we have permissions? Are we root? No, we're not, unfortunately. So we need to get to be root, right? So we're done, right? Not quite. Now, if you have low privilege shell on any machine, you found that the machine has an NFS share you might be able to use that. So, perfect example, we can now use that because now that we have access here and we can put things into their share drive, we can put something into the share drive and then run it here. So, here's the key though. Because we have the share drive mounted, we can control the permissions of the file we put in there. So, we can use the SUID bit. Now, I'm not going to cover too much about the SUID bit, but basically what it lets you do is it actually allows us to run that file as root. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The file itself will run with the permissions of the owner. Perfect. We can own it over here with this box and insert it with the SUID bit. So let's go ahead and try it. All right. My dog's snoring. Okay, so it says, due to compatibility reasons, we'll use a standard server bash executable. Okay, so you can download it here. Maybe if it, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do, I didn't think that would take me to a new page. We're going to download that bash script. We'll go ahead and open this. And the main reason I'm doing this is because, let's see if we can just view the raw. Okay, so we're going to not open that. Delete. Okay, so we'll just go take this and put it in our attack box and go to it that way. And the only reason I don't open up Try Hack Me in the attack box is if you guys have ever seen it, it's actually kind of funny because I'm using the attack box. If I opened it up, it will basically it kind of like puts you in the, I don't know how to explain it, but basically it's going to try and open the box so that you can see it just like this view, but in the attack box, and it's just going to it messes it up. But all right, so we got it downloaded. Perfect. So now we can go here. Let's go ahead and we'll move. Well, we got to change the permissions on it first. So let's go CD and downloads. Should be in there. It's not. Okay, where's the downloads at? Let's open her up. We'll take a gander here. Whoops. Okay, so it's in. Okay, so it's actually in the root, not in downloads. Perfect. Okay, so CD root. All right, so now we have bash right there. So now we need to change the permissions. So you can see here, it'll tell you here. I want to make sure I'm not skipping questions here. All right, download the bash executable to your downloads, then use copy, boom, to copy it to the NFS. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy it first. So copy bash, and we're going to copy it to temp, mount, and then cappuccino. Okay, now we'll CD into temp, mount, cappuccino. And there it is. Now we're going to change the mod on it, or permissions on it. And we can use sudo because we're on our machine. Change mod, and we're going to add the SUID bit. You got to actually put something there. Bash. Okay, so now it has the SUID bit. So now let's ls-la, and you can see here, so it has the permissions that we need except for, so it's asking us to do a sanity check. Here's what it should look like. Now the only reason it doesn't is because it doesn't have an executable function. So we'll change mod, we'll add the X for executable, and we'll say bash. Okay, now when we hit ls-la, it actually shows that, there we go, there's the permissions we need. So copy that, make sure you have the executable permissions. Now when we SSH into the machine, which we have here, and we hit ls, you see it's there. So we should be able to run this. Bash, and then tac P, that's for persistence. All right, we're in a bash script. Who am I? We're root. Look at that. That's pretty easy, huh? So now we got to find, it's usually in the root folder. Root.txt, cat root.txt, and there we go. Try Hack Me NFS got pwned. All right, easy day. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. The SUID bit is a little bit outside the scope of this specific box, but pretty simple to understand once you look at some of the other boxes I've done and some of the more in-depth explanations I've done. Okay, so what is SMTP? Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Go ahead and give a huge shout out to, you know it, Manscaped, baby. Manscaped.com. So let me tell you guys, again, I use this bad boy. I actually have two of them because I keep one right here so that I can show you guys. And then I've actually bought a separate one because I like them enough that I know once one goes out, I'm going to keep using it. So I love that thing. That's the Lawnmower 4.0. Now let me tell you guys, Manscaped is the best in men's below the waist grooming. And I'm not joking when I say that. I'm telling you guys, it's waterproof. I use it in the shower. I use the ball deodorant, which I didn't know was a thing. I didn't even know it exists. It helps a ton. I'm telling you guys, it reduces the risk of ingrown hairs, of nicks. It helps out so much. And not only can you use it for trimming, but they sell so many products. Like, look at this bag. Like, this thing is like serious quality. I actually didn't expect that. It's serious quality. They sent me this and pretty much all their deluxe package, which I love. And it comes with ball deodorant, the nose hair trimmers, everything. And I'm telling you, I will never not use this stuff again. I've used previous products in the past that I actually would never have taken as a sponsor because I didn't believe in them. So I definitely recommend them. I love Manscaped. I love that they sponsor the YouTube channel. It helps out a ton. It helps you guys get a huge discount. So if you guys like Manscaped products, if you guys even are curious about Manscaped products, if you use Stuffy24 at checkout right now, you get 20% off, but you also get free shipping. So it really pays for itself. It's not even a question to me. Like, I would just do it because it's simple. You're going to need it anyway. I mean, who doesn't trim, right? If you don't, you're probably not, doing the deed. So get in there, man. All right, let's go ahead and hop back into it. Okay. Whoops, I minimized the OBS. All right. I keep clicking that picture. So what is SMTP? Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. What is it? Pretty simple. Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Exactly. So it transfers mail. Exactly. So the difference here, POP and IMAP. So how does SMTP work? This is pretty much it in a nutshell. This is obviously simplified. We can go ahead and terminate this box and start this one up so we're not waiting around. Okay, so this is the picture, the SMTP pretty much to a T. What does that mean? So here's your user. You send a email. It goes to the SMTP server, which then sends it out to the internet to find another SMTP server, which will use POP or IMAP. Now, these look like separate servers, but most of the time they're running on the same one. It's maybe you'll have one in the POP server in the DMZ or something, or the SMTP. It doesn't matter, right? The point is the SMTP server sends it out, and POP and IMAP will actually address it internally and send it out, give it to whoever needs it in your local environment. So that's pretty much simplified version. I'm not going to dive into all of it because you guys can read this. If you're interested in SMTP or any of these protocols, you can dive into that. That's not the point of this box. The point of this box is to understand how to take advantage of some of these simple things so that way you can understand how hackers do it when you're defending against it. All right, what runs SMTP? Remember we remember now that it's important to know this, and it is Windows with Linux, so pretty much everything, right? Okay, so here's a resource that explains the technical implementation. So if you want to learn more, go to afternerd.com. Okay, so what does SMTP stand for? Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. What does it handle the sending of? Emails. What is the first step in the SMTP process? That's the SMTP handshake. If you remember the TCP IP handshake, it's similar in that where it needs to establish a connection with you. So what is the default SMTP port? 25. Where does the SMTP server send an email if the recipient server is not available? So it sits in a queue if they're not available until they are available. On what server does the email ultimately end up on? And that's the POP or IMAP. It will end up there, and then they will give it to the user, or some emails actually stay on that server and you connect to it and view it that way, and it doesn't come downloaded to the local machine. Okay, can a Linux machine run? Yes. Can a Windows machine run? Yes. Okay, we got that out of the way. We can start having some fun. Okay, before we begin, make sure to deploy the room. We did that. Enumerating users. Okay, so this is, again, we're going to need a couple of requirements. I like that if you guys notice on Try Hack Me Now, they're starting to advertise Parrot OS, which is what I use. So I actually like that. I'm kind of excited they're going to start implementing that a little bit more. Okay, however, it's always worth doing a quick update to make sure that you're on the latest version. Perfect. So we're going to be using Metasploit. So if you guys aren't familiar with Metasploit, you will be now. All right, so we'll go back to the home, and we'll just go ahead and spin up Metasploit. So first, let's run a port scan. Okay, so again, you guys know I'm not going to run the port scans on here because I don't want to sit here and wait. But port 25 is what is running on it. And fun fact, I actually didn't even run a port scan on this one. It said port 25 is the default for SMTP. So we put 25 and boom, there it is. So you didn't even have to run a port scan. You could have figured that out yourself. Okay, so what port should we, let's start at Metasploit. What command would we use for this? MSF console is the Metasploit. You can see right there, MSF console runs it. So we got that. Let's search for the module SMTP version. So they don't give you a lot of information on Metasploit on here because they kind of assume that you've used it before at this point. If you haven't, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do that. So search for the module SMTP version. So on Metasploit, you type MSF console, you get Metasploit. You just literally search it. Search. And then you're going to search for SMTP version. And boom, there you go. So there's the auxiliary scanner SMTP version. That's what they want. What's the full name? So now it says select the module and list the options. How do we do this? So you're just going to say use auxiliary scanner SMTP and then SMTP version. So when you select use on it, now you have to select options. When you select options, it's going to tell you you need the R host, which is your target. Okay, so you have to give them an R host. So it says here, having a look through the options, does everything seem correct? What is the option we need to set? So it is the right port, 25. So now we have to set the R host. So you type set R hosts, and pretty simple, 10, 10, 25, 247. Boom. Now when we select options, and now the R host has the actual IP, which, is that right? That's right. Perfect. Okay. So now this one is just a Google search again. What mail transfer agent is running the SMTP server? This will require some external research. It's not that difficult. If you just Google mail transfer agent, it's going to give you a list of them, and Postfix is one of them. That's what it's using. Okay. So now, oh, I guess we skipped one. Set the correct value of the target machine, run the exploit. So let's go ahead and run it. All right, so we ran it, and you can see right here, it actually, right there's the answer. polosmtp.home. So what is this supposed to do? It's going to give us the version number, hence the name SMTP version, and SMTP 220, polosmtp.home, Ubuntu, boom, boom. So it gave us the version number, perfect. And then right there, it gave us the name, the system mail name, polosmtp.home. So that's perfect. That gives us the name of it. That's important information that we're going to need. Okay, so now we got a good amount of information on the target system. Let's move on to the next stage. So now we're going to start enumerating. So we need to search again for SMTP, enum, which is enumeration. And let's hit enter. Boom, there it is. Auxiliary scanner SMTP, SMTP underscore enum. Perfect. So let's use it again. You guys remember that? And I believe you can actually just say use 0. Yep. So they have names here, or numbers, sorry. And you can just use the number because it might list like 5 or 6 that have that. You can just use the number if you want, but I wanted to show you both ways. Okay. So we'll go ahead and clear this so that we can get up to the top. All right. So we're going to use it. Let's go ahead and hit the options. Remember, we got to always look at the options. So we need to set the host. So our hosts is 1010 to, what was it, 25, and then 247. Perfect. So that's our host. The user file, let's see. I think it wanted us to use one, but okay, yep. So you can see here we're going to be using the top usernames shortlist.txt. So this is some of the top usernames out there in the field right now, and that's what we're going to be diving into. And you can download it here, but it actually comes pre-installed here. So we're going to say, we're going to actually go ahead and say set, and it's user underscore file. We need to set that to user share word lists sec lists usernames, and then top usernames shortlist.txt. And we'll see, it'll come back with an error if I type that wrong or if it's not the right path. So what options do you need to set the word list path to? That is user file. You see we just did that there. And it tells you right here, the file that contains a list of probable user accounts. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. And you can see it also asks, once we set this option, what other essential parameters do we need? And we needed that, the 1025, the R hosts. So now you run the exploit. This may take a few minutes, so grab a cup of coffee, keep yourself hydrated, wait around, it says. We'll let it run for a second. If it's starting to take a little bit longer, we're gonna get past it. So, but what it's gonna come back with is it's gonna give us the username administrator. And there we go. Users found, administrator. So that didn't take long at all. So it gave us the username admin. So now we have a username. Let's keep going. All right, so what do we know? So at this point, what stage are we at? What do we have? We have a user account name, which is administrator. We have the type of SMTP server and the operating system. So now we have enough to brute force it. So what does that mean? So we know from our port scan, the only other open port on this machine is SSH. So if you did the port scan, you know we have SSH login. So we're going to try and brute force it with the admin password with Hydra. So let's go ahead and do it. It gives you the command here. So if you guys have never used Hydra, it's actually a really, really cool tool. It lets you brute force, I think it says 50 plus types of things online, types of, yeah, this one doesn't go too much into it, but it'll let you do like FTP, SSH, like all kinds of stuff. It's an awesome tool. So we'll go ahead and do Hydra. Now they're doing T16. If you have a low-end computer, I don't recommend T16 personally. But if you have a high-end computer, go ahead, because that's the amount of threads that you're doing, meaning that's how many times it's trying to do them at the same time. So the more computing power you have, the better. But all right, so password, and we're going to use the user share wordless rocku.txt, and then we're going to say verbosity. We want verbose, baby. 1010 25 247, and then SSH because that's what we're trying to utilize. So hit it. Now let's see what happens. All right. So right there, please do not use for military or illegal purposes. Keep that in mind, guys. This is illegal. So make sure you have permissions. And I'm going to start saying that a little bit more because as we're getting more popular, I'm getting more requests to do illegal things, and we don't do illegal things on this channel. All right. So what is the password of the user found during our enumeration stage? So you can see it's running all these passwords with administrator as the username. Let's see if it finds it. Right there, it found it. Login, admin, password, Alejandro. All right, so now we can SSH right into it. So let's go ahead and clear this. And we can say SSH, and we can go back up and get the IP. Right there it is. SSH and administrator at 10.10.25.247. Perfect. And then it's going to ask for the password. And the password we just found out is Alejandro. And we're in as the admin too. Look at that. So we got a dead letter. We got mail directory. And we got smtp.txt. And if you cat the smtp.txt, who knew email servers were cool? I'll tell you who knew. Freaking everybody. All right. I knew it. You knew it. We all knew it. All right. Understanding MySQL. All right, guys, I'm trying to keep these videos fast, but still have you guys able to access it quickly. So that's why I'm going quickly. But MySQL, funny enough, we just used the RockU text, and MySQL vulnerability is what actually discovered the RockU text. RockU was a company long ago that actually used Facebook and MySpace like widgets and stuff, and a kid hacked into it using SQL and a SQL injection, and basically got, I think it was like 37 million passwords in clear text. Well, that became the rocku.txt file that we know today. Perfect. All right. So how does MySQL work? How does SQL work? Okay, so MySQL is exactly like it says, a relational database management system. So when you hear MySQL, it's referring to the database management system. SQL is the language. Keep that in mind. It's different. All right, so MySQL as a RDBMS is made up of the file server and utility programs that help administrate the SQL databases. So what it does is it allows you to be more user-friendly for admins instead of having to know every detail about SQL language to create the databases. Perfect. Now we understand MySQL a little bit. Let's dive into it. What type of software is MySQL? Relational database management system. What language is it on? SQL. What communication model does MySQL use? Client server, meaning there's a server that's hosting all the information and a client's reaching out asking for information. Boom, client server. What is a common application of MySQL? Back-end database. It's very common that the back-end database is what SQL is running, meaning when you log into a website, that website says, ask MySQL, hey, is this person in our database? And it checks the username and the password, says, yep, sure is. So that's the back-end database, meaning it's not sitting out there for you to look at. What major social network uses MySQL as their backend database? And Facebook. It's pretty easy. The hint gives you, it says like who was involved in some scandal or something, and then you Google and it's Facebook. Pretty simple. Okay, so when would you begin attacking MySQL? All right, so again, MySQL is not likely going to be the first point of call. What this means is, so this is different than a SQL injection, okay? The SQL injection might be one of the first things you attempt, but it's not the same as what we're doing here. And what I mean by that is SQL injection is just trying to see if you can pass queries to SQL. This is actually taking advantage of trying to connect directly to the SQL database. It's a little different. So here you go. It says typically you'll have gained some initial credentials from enumerating other services, and then you use them to exploit the MySQL service. So we found credentials here, root and password, while enumerating subdomains of a web server. Okay, so we tried to use the login for the SSH with root and password. It didn't work. But we know that MySQL is running on this because we did a port scan, right? So, and keep in mind, guys, on the attack box, I did have to actually install the MySQL client to get it working. So, if you install it and you type MySQL and it gives you something that says like you need to install these two things to use it, just install those two things. It gives you the commands for it because I had to on the attack box. All right. As always, we start with a port scan, and this one, 3306, is MySQL was using. It's pretty easy when you do the port scan on this one. It will pop up and it will say MySQL right on it. So it's pretty simple to find which port is using that. So good. Now we think we have a set of credentials. Let's double check. So let's go ahead and try and manually connect to it. So we're using the tool that they had us download, MySQL tac h, and then 10.10. I don't know if we have the IP for this one yet. 255.245. Okay, and then the username, which we think is root, and the password we think is, what was it? Was it just password? Yeah, just password. So hit enter, password, and we'll just say password. Okay, and we're in. So we at least know that we can do this. So let's go ahead and exit. We know that we can actually connect to it. That's good. So now we're going to use, looks like we're going back into Metasploit. Good thing I left it up, huh? Almost like I knew what was coming. All right, so we're going to search MySQL and SQL. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you guys is all this stuff we're doing with MySQL and some of the other things, these can all be done manually. So there's a couple of different boxes on Try Hack Me, and some we've done in the past that we've actually walked applications using SQL language, meaning we've done all this stuff like enumerating information manually, typing in the SQL commands ourselves. This is going to prevent you from having to know SQL, basically, or not prevent you, but it's going to help you if you don't know it. So let's go ahead and hit options as we always do on here, and you can see password, our host, our port. Okay, so pretty basic stuff. But one thing I'll tell you, this kind of threw me for a loop for a little bit because I was confused as what it's asking, because it says search for and select list options as needed. So there's the options. What 3 options do we need to set? So this is what threw me for a loop. When they say what options do we need to set, I thought they were asking for the required options because there is only 3 required options as well. They're not. They want to know what options are we actually going to change, which is password, our hosts, and username. So keep that in mind if you get caught up on that, like why is it not taking it? That's why. So we're going to set the password first, and the password was password. We're going to set our hosts second, and that was 10.10. There it is right there. Is that right? That doesn't seem right. 255.245. Okay, and then we're going to set the username, which we know is root. Okay, so now we set them, and then we're going to go ahead and say run. And when we do that, it gives us the actual exact version number of the operating system. Perfect. Boom. So now, let's say just from doing that, we could easily go ahead and look for exploits in Ubuntu, that version, but let's keep going. Let's see if we can figure something out. So now, great, we know our exploit is landing as planned. Perfect. So now what that means is you can see the exploit here is SQL. And what do you want it to do? The SQL to execute. And we want to select version. That's what we wanted to do. So we're going to change that option, set, and we're going to change SQL. And we want it to, instead of show the option or show the version like that, we want it to show databases. So now when we run it, look at that. It actually gives us the 4 databases it contains. So we could, even from here, we could change that and start diving into these. But we're going to do something else. So it asks for how many of them are there. There's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 databases that we're giving. All right, so you can see the word schema here, and we're going to cover that terminology here. What's a schema? A schema is a database, basically. So what this means is when you dive into a database, there might be 5 or 6 schemas in some databases, and what that is they're just separate domains, meaning they're separate information. They're not connected. So SQL is a relational database management type of system. That's what MySQL is. So relational says they relate to each other. There's primary keys and secondary keys and things that actually connect tables in databases, right? A schema is separate. They do not relate to each other. They can relate to each other, but they do not normally relate to each other. So a schema is its own entity in SQL. So keep that in mind when that's what these 4 are. These are 4 schemas or databases. Okay. So first, let's search and select the MySQL schema dump model. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. So search MySQL schema dump. All right, so we'll use it. Auxiliary. Actually, let's just do the 0 again. Way easier, right? All right, so now we're in there. We got to go ahead and change the options again, if you remember. So we'll set password. And you could set these globally, meaning that you don't have to keep changing it. But I do it because it requires me to look at them every single time. All right, so set password, and that is password. Set our hosts, and we're only doing it a couple of times. So 1010, what was it, 255, 245, and then username, root. And then we run it. All right, and when we run this, you can see here, see the relevant options, run the exploit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's asking us, so these are the different tables in there. So table name, columns. I mean, this is a lot of information. This is a whole dump of the database, which is freaking awesome. So here you can see it asks, what's the name of the table that last gets dumped? The last table here is weights global by latency. Okay, so that's the last table. So we put that in, perfect, got it. Now let's do the hash dump one. So now we're starting to look for passwords. That's what hash dump is, right? So this is a username password database. So let's go ahead and say search MySQL hash dump. Okay, and now we're going to use 1. All right, so now we have the hash dump. So now we'll show the options again. All right, so we need to set the password. So what this is doing is this knows exactly where the hashes are, and it's going to dump them for us rather than us having to manually go around and look through all the database tables and find the correct ones and all that. It's going to look through the whole thing and find things that match a hash pattern and send it out to us. So set password, and it was password. Set our hosts, and it was 255, whoops, 255, 245, I think. Let's make sure that's right. 255, 245, perfect, okay. And then set username to root, and then we'll run it. And you'll see we get some hashes. Okay, so now it says, again, I'll take you from here. See the relevant options on the exploit. What non-default user stands out to you? Well, the only non-default user is Carl. So, Carl, get your butt over here, bud. So there's Carl. Boom. So what is the user hash combination? We just copy that, put it right there, and you get that. Now, if we go here and we go to desktop, I already saved this for us. So there's Carl. That is saved, and I'll cat it for you so you can see. It's just his hash, that's all. So there's his hash in that format. So now we need to crack it. So we're going to use John the Ripper, and we're just going to use the default settings for John the Ripper. So John and Carl, hit enter. And let's see what happened here. What'd I do? Oh, no passwords left to crack because I've already cracked it. So let's just do this the easy way. We'll go ahead and move Carl to Carl1. And then we'll say Carl1. Okay, so it actually didn't work. It already figured it out. Okay, well, anyway, it already cracked it for us. So that's fine. Whatever. So if you type in John and Carl or whatever your hash file is, you will start running a crack on it. And what it's going to do is use the actual default John the Ripper word list, and it's going to find it, and the password is doggy, D-O-G-G-I-E, which is a weird password. Now, it says here, password reuse is not only extremely dangerous, but extremely common. what are the chances that the user reused this password for a different service? So now we're thinking outside the box, right? Now we realize we have a password for John, or not John, for Carl. I wonder if we can SSH in as Carl now. So SSH, let's try it. So Carl at 10.10.255.245 and doggy. Whoa, okay. So we got his username and password out of the database, came back into SSH, and voila, here we are. So now if we cat the flag, there you go. Congratulations on your MySQL flag. Now, what could you do once you're in this? We already got this video going a long time, but I'll just tell you, from here you would create persistence, meaning I could create a backend user account that I can SSH into, things like that. I can create root shells, all kinds of stuff. So hopefully you guys like this stuff. This video I liked a lot because I actually enjoyed doing these boxes where it kind of explains a little more, gives me a little opportunity to explain to you guys what's going on really, rather than just saying, find the flag, do this, because those boxes can be done so many different ways. These ones are enumerating data first, which I think is very important to see. And I really like the style of doing that. So hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the series. And make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell notification to get notifications every day, guys. I appreciate it. We're trying to upload these fast, but these are getting longer. So I actually thought these would be like real short at the beginning and then get longer, but they're kind of like right at the beginning, 45-minute, hour-long videos. So I have to go through and edit them and things like that. So hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. And we're going to keep doing the cyber defense path. So thank you so much. And Patreon users, thank you.